when dealing with data, we need to understand different things. We need to understand the data types and we need to understand the data formats. Let's first understand the data types. So basically we have common types that you will see. The string type. Let's start with the string. A string is basically the text or a text. Okay. Usually you'll see it between double quotation, and sometimes you will see it in a single quotation. So those are examples of a string. Hello, order 123, 200, hi there. Those are examples of a string. We have also numbers. Numbers is another data type, like 10, 99.95, 0, 5, and 1. Boolean. And sometimes we refer to it as bool, okay? And it has the value true and or false, okay? You notice here, true here is without quotation, without double quotations, okay? So sometimes not sometimes, we usually type it as true or false values. Usually Boolean means it's something like yes or no. For example, do you have like a laptop? We say yes or no with true or false, okay? So if I want to say yes, I do have a laptop, we would go with the true. If I want to say no, we go with the false, okay? And sometimes we don't, we usually use true or the value 1 for the true value or the yes value. For the false, sometimes we use false, or like we use false, or you may also see a Boolean value as 0. And we'll see that right now. Okay, we have the null, and basically when using null value, we say okay, it doesn't have a value. Okay, this item or this property doesn't have a value. Okay, and we're gonna see this. And we have the object. The object basically is a bit of a complex data type, let's say that contains things like string, number, boolean, null, all of them, or like null is not is also something that also can be used in the object. So we can use different, all of these or some of these. Okay. And also the object may contain array, like a property in the object may contain array, and I'm gonna explain this right now. So basically here, this is an object, and this is just an example of an object. So basically we have an ID here is called a property. Okay, so the ID here has a value of a type of number. 1 is a number here. You don't see quotation here. Okay, name here is a string. Email is a string. Is active true. Here is a Boolean value. Okay, sometimes we change this to 1, or yeah, if we want to say no, we can use false or we can use 0. Usually the Boolean values will be in the form of a question, like is active or enabled or disabled. Things like does have true or false values, and this is like being who decides this is the developer or the developers who are building the API. Later on we'll talk about the APIs, but yeah, just wanted to mention this. Okay. Let's bring this back to true, for example. And here the phone null, it means that there is no phone. Okay. Now the array is basically a list. it means it has more than a value. So for example, here we have an array of of 2 objects. This array is called array of objects, okay? Because this is, as we have, this is an object, like this one is a whole object, and the other one here is another object, okay? So basically this array has 2 objects, okay? And it has 2 items basically. So it's like the array is a list. Like give me, like we want to say, I want the array, like the list of the customers. We use array. I want to the list of orders. This is an array, okay? So basically anything that has more than 1 item, usually we use the array, okay? So yeah, so here is an array, and this array has 2 items. The first item, here's the first item, as you can see, and here's the second item, or 2 objects, okay? So let's now go with this one, okay? The first one, the first object of the array. Don't like the formats of these stuff, we're gonna talk about them later on, like the different formats, or some of the different formats, or some of the formats. But for now, just I want to from you to just understand the different like data types and so on, okay? So, and later on we'll talk about the data formats and how's, like, why we use this one or this one, the curly braces, or and so on, okay? And why we format it this way, or when to use this one and when to use this one, okay? But for now, just let's understand the data types: the string part, the number part, the boolean part, and the object, and the array itself, and the null values, and so on, okay? So, okay, let's start with the first item, or the first object, okay? The first object here contains different data types. Okay, the first item here is the ID, or the first property. This is a property this is called the property, okay? The property here has a value of 1, 2, 3, okay? Supposing this is a customer, and the customer, like I have a list of the customers. I want to get the list of the customers, and this one has the list of the customers, okay? Okay, so now the list of the customers here, we have 2 customers, okay? So this is the first customer, and this is the second customer, okay? We have ID here. This is a number, as you can see, no quotation, and so on. This is a string. This is also a string. Is active here is boolean, and as I have explained above, the different how, like yeah, we can use different values here for the true. We can change this to 1, okay? So yeah, and as I have mentioned, usually the boolean values has either one of 4 values: true, false, 1, or 0. True or 1, it means yes. False or 0, it means no, okay? The phone here is null, and it has null values. The tags here is an array, and this is an array of strings, okay? You see VIP, newsletter, and those are like strings. It means list of strings, okay? Whenever I say an array, it means a list, okay? List of strings. The address here is an object, and it has city and country. Orders is here is an array, and as you can see here, it's an array of objects, okay? Order ID here is a string. The amount here is a number. Same thing here. Created at is a string, but it's the string here is a date. So yeah, we can kind of format this date and so on, but yeah, it's still a string. The other one here, can we go with this one as well? Let's go. The ID here is a number. the name is a string, email is string, is active false, phone is string. Okay, and as you have noticed here, the phone for this customer is null. It means that this customer doesn't have a phone number. Okay, we can also replace this with something like this with an empty value, but we can also use null. Null usually can be used in like in the string values, in the number, in the number, in the in the object. We can, for example, if the customer doesn't have like address and like address, for example, we can use like null. Okay, or we can use, if for example, keep those, but yeah, use null here, null values here, you know. Okay, I hope this is, or we can use this as an empty string. Okay, but null is more of a like better when we want to accept, like say this is an empty value. Okay, okay. The orders here is an array of objects. We talked about this part, and this one as well. We have the name, the email string is active, is a boolean, and it has false value, and the phone is a string. The tags here, it does have an empty array. It means it's an empty. We can replace this with null. Okay, so because null can be used as an indicator or as a value to explain that this value or this property has an empty value. Okay, null is more of a generic value that can be used as a value for different data types, for string, for number, for array, for object, for whatever. Okay, but we can also if I like this one may have an empty value, but we can keep it as this one. Okay, but usually the empty value, or the double quotation, or the double quotation, or the empty string is usually used for saying this is an empty value, but for string. Just this is just for string. This way, usually used for saying there is an empty value for the string. The better when we design the API, okay, the null is more of a generic value for any different data types. Okay, okay. So I've said here empty array, or we can use null. Okay. Again, this way is being done by the developers. Okay. Okay. And we're not gonna talk about how to do this here in this course, probably later on in another course. Same thing for this one. This is an object, and the object has two properties. The city is a string, the country is a string. And again, this is orders, and it's an array, and usually it will be the same as this one. When this customer has orders, we will have like list, array of objects, okay, or list of objects. Okay, okay. And again, this is an empty, it does have empty array, and this one is a string. Okay, I'm just giving you an overview of this because later on this will be very beneficial. Now again, the data formats. Now I hope this data types is very clear and very simple to follow. And yeah, now let's go to the data formats. Data formats are the way of formatting the data, how we are going to send or receive the data, to send and receive the data, or how we're gonna receive the data, and so on, or how we're gonna send the data. Okay, we have many different data formats. Okay, okay, we have the JSON, we have XML, we have form data, we have binary data, we have proto buffers or protocol buffers, and many more. Okay, but I'm just giving you some examples. Okay, by the way, here the data here is in JSON format. This way, when you see it this way, and this is in JSON format. I'm gonna show this in action later on, and this array as well, and all of this, how we're gonna format the data, it's in JSON format. Okay. Now we have also XML format, and I have just given an example here. For example, here's a JSON format of a customer, and we have ID, name, email, and is active. The same thing, but in XML format. You see, we have a customer ID and name. Like, it's the same data, but the way we structure the values and so on, and the properties and all of these stuff is different. Okay, so yeah. Usually you'll see the JSON format is popular nowadays, but you may also encounter XML format as well. Okay. Yeah, so the form, we have form data, we have binary data. The binary data is like when you want to upload, for example, a video, an image, you want to update your profile image, for example, you would usually send the data in a binary format. Okay. Binary data is a bit different than the JSON and XML. It's non-readable data. So here, these are readable. You can read them, but the binary data is not human readable data. When you send the data, you send it in like differently. Okay. And we're gonna see this in action, honestly speaking, later on. But yeah, just want to give some common data formats. We have the protobuf or protocol buffers. Yeah. So yeah, this one usually, I would say it's a bit like you may not use it, but you may use it in when we talk about a bit of complicated systems. Like in microservices and so on, when we want to talk between services and so on. But this, like, the ones that you need, honestly speaking, usually the ones that you would deal with is the JSON format, most of the time, or like it's the popular one that you may find it a lot, like this format is being used. XML is not popular nowadays, but you may encounter it, the binary data and the form data as well, because probably we want to use to send data with files and so on. But yeah, just like we're gonna encounter those popular things. I just wanted to mention that there is different data types like in here, and the way we send those data types differs from like the data formats that we are using. Okay. And yeah, here's just an example between the JSON and the XML format. Hopefully this clarifies a lot, and yeah, that's it for this video.